Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Varun Pawar, and welcome back to my channel, which is Certified Business Analysis Professional. Before proceeding further, first of all, thanks everyone for your support, and I'm getting an overwhelming response from your end, and that is, inspiring me and motivating me to keep continue with these sessions. Today, we'll start our last knowledge area, which is solution evaluation. So let's continue. So first of all, what is solution evaluation? Evaluation is something that you are measuring, right? So for an example, if you are a CBAP or you are a CBAP aspirant, then you are preparing for the examination, and at the end, IIBA conducts the examination, and either you pass or fail. So they have a criteria that in each knowledge area you have to perform, at par, and then that's an evaluation criteria. Similarly, like a tester, uh, testing any feature or any story, there is some acceptance criteria he's following and marking check whether this acceptance criteria is complete or not. Based on that criteria, the tester is evaluating the feature or the story. Like you are an employee of an organization and you have done your work for the entire year. So there are some key performance indicators set for your appraisal, like your productivity, the number of value ideas you have generated, your availability, number of bug you have fixed or something, right? So these are the key performance indicator, and at the end of the year you've been appraised based on those criteria. So these are the way of evaluation is nothing but the measurement of the performance. When we are talking about the solution, how it is different from like a tester is testing a bug or testing a feature. Solution is basically the entire entire solution as a whole. It's not a feature, right? So that way, the solution evaluation is a complete value add, how much value it's been adding to the users or who is using that solution. For that, we do the solution evaluation. So now when you read it through, what is solution evaluation? So this knowledge area describes the task that the business analyst perform to assess the performance and value delivered by a solution, and to recommend removal of barriers or constraints that prevent the full realization of the value. So for an example, you have been appraised based on some key performance indicator set for you, like the productivity. So they have said like your productivity should be 10% improved every year. But suppose this year your productivity was little bit low, then the manager would be telling you the areas of the improvements that where you can improve so that your productivity can be increased. So the business analyst, after when they set the performance measures, uh, and also if there is any barrier or if any restriction is there or a constraint is there which is preventing the full realization of the value, so then the business analyst also recommend the way how to remove those barriers or the constraints, right? An important distinction between the solution evaluation knowledge area and other knowledge areas is the existence of an actual solution. So if you remember RADD, requirement analysis and design definition, there we have verify requirement, validate requirement. You might be getting confused with that. So just to tell you, that the verify requirement and the validate requirements, the requirement and design, these are basically at the requirement side. There we are not testing or evaluating the solution, rather we are testing or evaluating the model, the design model and the design which is non-functional or non-operating, right? That is just for look and feel how it looks. So that is moreover that validation and the verification. Verification is basically to assess the quality of the requirement based on some checklist, right? So that is non-operational model of a solution or a design, I would say. There we are validating that in RADD. Whereas in solution evaluation, we are talking about the pure existing solution in some form. Either it could be partial or it could be fully, but it would be in operational form. Then only you will able to evaluate that. It could be a partial solution, but the solution or the solution component has already been implemented and is operating in some form. Solution evaluation tasks can be performed on solution components in varying stages of development. So when we are talking about the solution, so either you go with the MVP approach, which is minimum viable product. You don't release all the feature, rather you implement or release only the necessary features uh, that makes the work, right? Suppose you have to move to from one shore to other shore of the sea. For that you can use a small boat that you can row by your hand, right? So that's a minimum viable product, that you are rowing your boat and going from one shore to another shore, point A to point B. But could be the big solution, like you need a cruise that can carry around 1,000 of passengers together with all the other logistic and your cars and vehicles, everything in that boat, having some multiplexes or some malls, right? So that's a full-fledged solution, but that's not, you know so even either that would be a minimum viable product, which you can say that's a pilot or beta release, or it could be a prototype or a proof of concept, or it could be a fully functional, right, product, that is operational releases we generally say. So in these three forms or phases, if a solution exists, then you will able to evaluate that. Now, solution evaluation, we have these, I would say these five activities: task, measure solution performance, analyze performance measure, assess solution limitation, assess enterprise limitation, recommend action to increase solution value. So what we said in solution evaluation, we said we try to identify and define the performance measures. We analyze those performance measures, how valid those are. We identify the limitation of that solution. That would either be at the solution level or that would be either at the enterprise level. And then we recommend the actions, either to remove those constraints that is limiting the full realization of the value out of that solution. We recommend something, or to increase the solution value. So these are the tasks that we'll go through, and today we will discuss measure solution performance. So the objective is to define the performance measures and use the data collected to evaluate the effectiveness of a solution in relation to the value it brings. Performance measures determine the value of a newly deployed or existing solution. The measures used depend on the solution itself, the context, and how the organization defines value. When solutions do not have built-in performance measures, the business analyst works with the stakeholders to determine and collect the measures that will best reflect the performance of a solution. Performance may be assessed through key performance indicators, align with the enterprise measures, goals and objective for a project, process performance targets, or test for a software application. Now, what are the inputs and output for this? So we have inputs, the business objective. Why the business objective? Because it measurable results that the enterprise wants to achieve provides a benchmark against which solution performance can be assessed. I'll explain you it in detail in our next slide, but just first go through the inputs. The second is implemented solution. As we said, the solution must be in operational phase in some mode, like whether it's fully or partially. And then only you will perform this activity on those. And then you will able to measure, or you're able to identify the performance measures. Apart from this, other guidelines and tools that also act as an input is change strategy. Change strategy is used or in use to implement the potential value. So the current change strategy that you are following or you are working with, uh, used to implement the potential value that we consider here. Future state description, because future state description tells about the potential value expected from the future state, then only you able to set the performance measures, right? That what key performance indicator you have to set in order to achieve that potential value or measure that potential value at the end when the solution is in operation. So that future state tells about that. Then we have requirements validated, set of requirements and design that have been analyzed to determine their value. And requirements validation happens during the RADD, the third activity of requirement analysis and design definition, that is requirement validation. And the solution scope, the solution boundaries to measure and evaluate it. Solution scope tells about the boundaries, right, to measure and evaluate. And we get the measures or the KPIs in a different way, we can say, in to ease up relating things. So measures are basically the KPIs that provide information on how well the solution is performing or potentially could perform. Now, what are things we do generally in this measure solution performance? So we do three things. The first one is to identify and define the performance measure. The second thing we do is we validate these measures against the overall goals or objective of the organization. And the third thing we do is validate the measures, I mean the quantifiability, right, itself for the correctness. So let's take an example here. Suppose you are a operational support executive. You're supporting and you are working in an Electrolux, which is like AC department, right? You are working there as an operational support executive, and you are handling the incidents raised by the customers or end users. And an organization set up key performance indicators for you is like incident breach is one indicator, value idea with value ideas that you have provided, that's the second KPI, and the third one is your availability. So these are the three matrices set for you for your evaluation at the end of the year. But they have said that in terms of the numbers, to quantify it better, they have put some figures, right? So incident breach should not be more than 20 per year. Value ideas, you have to give 4 value ideas per year. And availability, your availability should be 200 days per year. So that's a general criteria set for your evaluation, right? Then, so identify and define the performance measures. So organization has already identified and defined your performance measure based on this. These are the measures, incident breach, value ideas, and availability. And defined like not greater than 20 per year, 40 per year, 200 days per year. Now, to validate whether these measures are relevant to your role and from the organization goals or objective perspective. So now organization is having their goals, and the high level goals and the objectives are like they have set reduce the incident 10% per year, right? So now based on the organization goal, your KPI is being derived. How? It says reduce incidents. So that's why they have set the incident breach should not be 20 per year, right? More than this per year. So this KPI is for you. Based on that KPI, right? That has been derived from reduce incident, goal and objective of the organization. Then value ideas, it said like 4 per year. So from where it is being derived? It is derived from the improved profits margin. So 10% per year the organization had set. So the organization want the value ideas from each of the operational support executive. Even if you are giving 4 out of 4, it could be possible that one gets hit, right? That one is being implemented that could give the profit, some profit margin to the organization. And you are just one employee, there could be hundred and thousand of employees would be giving 4 value ideas per year. That would ultimately lead to more than 10% or 50% profit margin per year, right, for an organization. And the third is increase productivity. So how to increase the productivity 10% year on year is, if your availability is 200 days per year, then it could be possible that it could give 10% year on year or 20% year on year. So that's just a how we relate that your KPIs, these are the key performance indicators set by the organization for you based on their overall goals and objective. They mapped up these with you. Now, the third is validate the measures quantifiability itself for the correctness. Now, the important thing, how the organization has reached on a conclusion that these three will be the key performance indicator for the operational support executive role. So then the organization have a lot of employees who is working on different projects, different departments, different roles, right? And there could be a lot of people who are working with the same profile that you are working on, right? So in that way, the organization filter out, put some statistical analysis into place, and then come up with the KPIs pertaining to your role, right? So this is how it goes. Now, how about this threshold, like not greater than 20 per year or 4 per year or 200 days per year? That is again based on the statistical analysis and the average out of the results. So suppose they have 1,000 employees who is working as an operational support executive, and they have seen, okay, they are the average of their incident breach per year is around 18, 10, 11, 12, and the average that comes out is 20. So that's why it has been set like that should not be more than 20 per year. Similar way, value ideas, might be people are generating more than 4, 5, 6, 7, that average out to 4, so they have put 4 per year. So it's just analogy for you to relate things, right, to performance, how the KPIs are set, how the quantification of those KPIs based on the data or statistical analysis is being done, and then set then some numbers for you to quantify it, right? And how these KPIs is related with the goals and objective of the organization. So that's just an analogy I've set for you to understand uh, how the evaluation is being done, and on what basis, and what are the KPIs, how it is being set. Now let's think about, now we are evaluating the performance of a, let's say, an assembly machine or assembly, uh, a car assembly, where the cars is being produced and manufactured. So they have an assembly line where different components of a car come together and assembled by some bots or robots or manually that delivers a car, right? So let's see that assembly line is manufacturing around or producing 100 cars a year, right? So we have said like that assembly line should produce 100 cars per year, but if that assembly line is not producing 100 cars per year, then it's a failure, right? So that's a KPI that assembly line should produce 100 cars per year. So if it is producing 80, so that's an indicator that it is producing less. So we have evaluated that. In similar way, a solution is there. We are saying, okay, a banking application is there, and that a banking application can should do millions and trillions of transaction in per second, right? But if that uh, the application is not able to cater that, then that's a failure. So that's one of the indicator. Then the application able to open within 1 nanosecond or microsecond, so that's another KPI. But if that application you are not able to open in 5 seconds, that's again breaching of the KPI, right? And let's say there are uh, millions of concurrent users should able to use your application, able to operate that. But if users are facing like the not able to operate or hanging sessions or so these are the uh, key performance indicators we have set pertaining to that application or the solution that evaluate or measure the performance of that application. I hope with those many examples you will able to relate, define the performance measures, validate these measures against the overall goals and objective of the organization, and validate the measures means quantifiability itself for the correctness. Now let's talk about the elements. So first element is define solution performance measures. So this is the same thing, identify and define the performance measures. So when measuring solution performance, B determine if current measures exist. B ensure that any existing performance measures are accurate and relevant. Business goals, objectives and the business processes are common source of measures. Performance measures may be influenced or imposed by third parties such as solution vendors, government bodies, or other regulatory organizations. Solution performance measures may be quantitative, qualitative, or both depending on the value being measured. So what do you mean by quantitative? Quantitative is some, you can able to quantify a solution in some numbers, some countable form, some figures, some finite value, right? It could be amount, quantities, rates, right? Some value should be there to quantify that. Qualitative measures are subjective, like, oh, it's not good, it's not that better, it's a par lower than what we expected. So these are some perceptions, your attitude. It's a subjective response from the from the point of view who is evaluating. So those are, let's say that somebody say, you are a very good tester, since you are performing very good, you are a good business analyst because you are taking very less time to do the analysis, right? These are subjective. So these are qualitative measures. But if somebody tells you, okay, you are a business analyst and you are able to complete analyze the 10 or 20 stories in a week, so that is quantitative measure that it's can be measured as some finite numbers associated with that. Now the validate performance measure, that the second element. Here we are validating the performance. Remember the second point that I said, after define and identifying the measures, we are validating those measures, right? So validating performance measures helps to ensure that the assessment of solution performance is useful. BA validate the performance measures and any influencing criteria with the stakeholders. Key measures should align with any higher level measures that exist within the context affecting the solution. Sometimes sponsors may decide the measures, and sometimes by any stakeholders with decision making authority, they decide the measures. So validating performance measure, first of all we are validating it, how relevant it with the context of the solution or the organization is, right? So if the organization is dealing with uh, dealing with some, let's say, the incidents, right? So they are selling the ACs, and they are expecting the complaints from the users. You are converting those complaints into incident. It could be for installation, it could be it's not working, it's not chilling or something, right? So they have their own goals and objectives, and based on that, your measures should be aligned with the that line itself. It should not be opposite and not relating. Then it would be uh, it is invalid, right? Your KPI is invalid, right? So KPIs should always be valid with the what organization is dealing with and what their goals and objectives are, right? And sometimes what happened, the performance measure itself is set by the sponsor, because the sponsor know everything about the performances. So they set the measures itself, that this is should be used as an indicator to measure this, and sometime by any stakeholder who is having a decision making authority. Then collecting the performance measure. So when defining the performance measures, BMA employ basic statistical sampling concept. When collecting performance measure, business analysts consider volume or sample size, sample size appropriate for the initiative, frequency and timing. The frequency and timing with which measurements are taken may have an effect on the outcome. Currency, measurements taken more recently tend to be more representative than older data. So let's understand it by an same example again. So first we'll talk about the volume or the sample size, right? So how the organization came to the conclusion that the incident breach should not be more than 20% a year, right? So it could be possible. There are different way of coming to this conclusion. Either you just simply go through only one another resource with the same profile and just see that how many incidents he is breaching per year, right? One is that it could be possible that he's breaching 80, he is breaching 80 incidents per year, but they have said 20. It's not then good that you are just using one sample for that. The organization consider a big number of sample size to quantify it better. So organization may have considered like 100 of your profiles and who are working. Then they have considered different KPIs, and then concluding that these would be the KPIs for you and these would be the quantification for you, right? So the number, as if the number is bigger, then the if the number for the sample size is bigger, then you would able to conclude it in a better and more accurate way, right? So the sample size should always be bigger. Then the timing or frequency. Now let's say when we are talking about the timing or frequency, let's take an example of this assembly line that we were saying, like that is manufacturing, producing the cars, right? So we are saying during summer, the production capacity is 80. During the winters, the production capacity is 100. And why is it so? Because during summers, we need to give a time to machine to get relaxed. Otherwise, there are more chances that the machine start malfunctioning or some of the components of a machine breaks down, right? So in order to make a machine to keep working, we have to give a breakout time for 1 hour. So that is the one of the reason that during the summer the machine is not produce this entire assembly line is not producing 100 cars, whereas during the summer during the winters there is no need for the machine to give a break, right? And during winters the machine able this assembly line able to produce 100 cars. So the timing is very important, right? In a similar way, if we can give an example of this incident breaches, right? So you are working for Electrolux organization where the incident has been raised for the AC non-functioning, functioning, installation and all. And you also know that if if we say that not greater than 20 per year, why we have considered per year? Because if we could say like, okay, 10 incident per quarter, right? It could be like JFM, AMJ, OND, right? So we know we were not able to quantify it better if we say per quarter, because the ACs, the sales and installation of ACs, end users generally using ACs during the peak summer season. And you know that during the peak summer season, we can expect lot many incidents related, rather than as we compare to the winter season where there would be no incident at all. So if we conclude, okay, during winters, let's take a sample size of winter only, and you would say there is no incident. So it could end up with saying, oh, the no incident should be per year, which is not valid, right? So you have to take a greater sample size, do average it out, and then conclude the quantification for the value for the per KPIs, right? So the timing or frequency does matter that. And frequency is how frequently you have tested that. And timing is also like, if we talk about this, it could be possible like 10 years back, if you able to quantify this, then it would come around like thousands per year. But due to the improvement, digitalization, and all those factors put into place, we able to manage it 20 per year in recent days, right? So you are comparing the recent years, not the 10 years back data, right? So the timing and frequency is very important from that perspective as well. And the third important factor is the recency or currency that we have just talked about. The recency, like the recent data you have to talk about, not the 10 years old data. So now, who are the stakeholders who participate in this measure solution performance? Is the customer is consulted for the solution performance, like what KPIs we can set for the measurement, right? So customer can tell us about this. End user give the feedback about the workload and the job satisfaction. So workload, it is directly related to the KPI. If the KPI is not able to achieve, right, it could be due to n number of factors. So when we talk about the end users, the KPIs is not being quantifiable, or it's above the threshold or below the threshold. End user talks about based on the what he's performing and the workload, the operation part, right? So job satisfaction part. So end user talks about that, and then we are able to conclude and quantify those KPIs. Domain subject matter expert consulted to provide potential measures. So domain subject matter expert knows everything. So he's also been consulted to provide the potential measures that we can use. Sponsors, as I said, that sponsor itself can provide the performance measures, and also if somebody is suggesting the performance measures or KPIs, the sponsors need to agree with that and approve those measures. Then we have a regulator guidelines and provides the guidelines and the constraints in solution performance measures. And the project manager itself, solution that is already operational, there it might be that his role is not required. But if the operation, if the solution is now about to come into existence, there it could be possible that project manager need to manage a schedule and task to perform the solution measure. Then what are the techniques? Well, acceptance and evaluation criteria, that you can relate it directly. Benchmarking and market analysis, we do the benchmarking market analysis to derive the acceptable levels, or even to define the measures. The business cases used to define business objective. The organization set their business objective and the goals based on which your performance measure indicators and the quantification is being derived. The data mining used to collect and analyze. So when we are talking about the statistical analysis, to come to the conclusion which metrics to use and how to quantify those metrics is pertaining to each resources, right? Uh, there we use the data mining to collect the data, start mining, and then come to the conclusion. Decision analysis used to assist stakeholder in deciding on suitable ways to measure solution performance and acceptable levels of performance. Focus group used to provide subjective assessment, insights, and impression of a solution measure. Metrics and key performance indicator used to measure solution performance. Now, then we have non-functional requirement analysis used to define expected characteristic of a solution. Observation used either to provide feedback on perceptions of solution performance or to reconcile contradictory results. Prototyping used to simulate a new solution so that performance measures can be determined and collected. So when we said like you should have some solution operational existence partially implemented, so where we said pilot, beta, and prototyping, right? So prototyping is required as one of the technique. Survey or questionnaire used to gather opinions and attitudes about solution performance. Surveys and questionnaires can be effective when large or disparate groups need to be polled. Use cases and scenarios used to define the expected outcome of a solution. And vendor assessment used to assess which of the vendor's performance measures should be included in the solution performance assessment. So these are like the techniques, and all are revolved around or oriented around the performance. It's either for the measurement, either for to identify, either for to quantify, or either to decide which performance measure to use, right? So I hope you understand this either complicated, and I hope this is easy for you to relate and understand pertaining to the BABOK. That's it for today from solution evaluation knowledge area and the first activity, which is measure solution performance. We'll continue with the second activity, which is analyze the performance measure in upcoming sessions. Till then, again, thank you for your feedback and thank you for your overwhelming responses and liking, sharing my channel. And I hope I continue this. So we'll meet you in our next session. Till then, take care and goodbye.